They weren't just stealing her money, they were slowly poisoning her, her own family, using plants from her own garden. Can you even imagine the level of betrayal, the intimacy of it, using the very things she loved against her? It sounds like something out of a twisted movie, a psychological thriller you can't look away from, but it happened. I'm Victoria, and I share stories that stay with you, stories of crossing lines, stories of justice, sometimes the hard kind, the kind that leaves scars but also, strangely, heals. Today's story, it's heavy, it carries the weight of unimaginable cruelty. It comes from a woman I met, we'll call her Agnes. She seemed like the quintessential sweet older lady, retired librarian, quiet, precise, almost meticulous in her movements, living alone in the sprawling, slightly old-fashioned house she'd shared with her late husband, George, surrounded by books and, well, plants, lots of them, an explosion of green in every sunny window. A garden that was her pride and joy. But beneath that quiet exterior, beneath the cardigans and the sensible shoes, there was steel, forged in the absolute hell she endured, a hell created by the people she loved most. And the hell she unleashed to get free. You need to hear how Agnes fought back, how she turned their own cruelty, their own greed, their meticulous evil plan, against them. It's a masterclass in quiet fury, a testament to the power of a sharp mind hiding in plain sight. Subscribe right now. You don't want to miss a second of this, because this is about reclaiming your life when they try to bury you alive, literally, piece by painful piece. Okay, let me take a breath. This one gets me every time I think about it, the sheer cold-blooded nature of it. Agnes asked me to share this. She said people need to know, need to be aware that monsters don't always lurk in shadows. Sometimes they bring you muffins, sometimes they offer you tea. Need to see that even when everything seems lost, when your own body and mind feel like they're betraying you, there's still fight left, if you choose it. If you can find that spark in the darkness. Now I'm going to let Agnes tell you her story, in her own words, as she told it to me. Imagine her sitting across from you, calm now, composed, but with a fire still burning deep in her eyes, a fire that refined her, didn't consume her. This is Agnes's voice, her experience, her righteous rage. It started subtly, didn't it always? Deception rarely arrives with a brass band. Clara, my niece, and Ben, my nephew, my late sister Emily's children, after George, my husband, passed suddenly from a heart attack, they became, well, everything, or so I thought. Emily had been gone for years, cancer, so they were the only connection left to my side of the family. George and I, we had a good life, quiet, yes, but rich, full of books, travel when we were younger, shared jokes, comfortable silences. He was an engineer, logical, steady. He loved my passion for books. Even my slightly morbid fascination with botanical chemistry. Our house reflected us. Solid, comfortable, filled with memories and plants. George tolerated my ever-expanding collection. After he died, the quiet in the house became heavy, oppressive sometimes. Clara and Ben lived nearby, popped in often, especially in those first few months. Clara with her bright, almost blinding smile, always bringing muffins or scones, asking if I needed anything, fluttering around the house, straightening pictures that didn't need straightening. Ben quieter, more reserved, good with fixing things, a leaky faucet here, a sticking door there. He started helping manage my online bills, said it was too confusing for me, that things were changing so fast digitally. I suppose I let him. It felt easier. One less thing to worry about while drowning in grief, I thought. How naive that seems now. My life settled into a new rhythm, quieter still, orderly, predictable, just how I liked it, or maybe how I needed it, to cope. The grief was a constant hum beneath the surface, but manageable. My books were my escape, my garden my therapy, especially my collection of unusual botanicals. George used to joke I knew more about poisons than the whole county medical examiner's office, said I could commit the perfect crime. We laughed about it. It was just a hobby, intense reading, categorization, understanding the complex chemistry of alkaloids and glycosides. a librarian's passion for order and knowledge, applied to nature's darker side, just theoretical, purely academic curiosity, or so I believed then. I never imagined that knowledge would become necessary for survival. Clara and Ben, they seemed so concerned, their visits became more frequent, their attentiveness almost smothering, especially as I started feeling off. It wasn't one big thing, just a gradual erosion. It began with fatigue, a deep bone-dragging weariness I couldn't shake, no matter how much I slept. Then, brain fog, like my thoughts were moving through thick syrup, forgetting words mid-sentence, misplacing my reading glasses, finding them in the refrigerator. Not like me at all. I pride myself on my sharp mind, always have. My memory was my fortress. "Oh, Aunt Agnes," Clara would say, her voice dripping with practiced sympathy, a tone I now recognize as cloying. "Maybe you're just doing too much. Potting those plants is strenuous. You need to rest more." She started making me teas, herbal concoctions, chamomile, mint, lemon balm, said they'd help me relax, help me sleep, help with the fuzziness. Said she found the recipes in one of my old botanical books, tucked away on a shelf. Clever, wasn't it? Using my own interests, my own books, against me. Ben handled more and more of the finances. "Just to take the load off, Auntie," he'd say, with that earnest look he perfected, showing me simplified statements he'd print out, big friendly fonts. Everything looked fine, orderly, no alarming red numbers. I trusted them. Why wouldn't I? They were Emily's children. They were family, my only family left. What reason would they have to harm me? The symptoms worsened. Slowly, insidiously, dizziness became a frequent companion, a feeling of faintness when I stood up too quickly. Nausea rolled in waves, usually in the mornings. Sometimes tremors in my hands, subtle at first, then more noticeable, making it hard to hold a pen, to turn the pages of a book. I felt like I was fadding, drifting, becoming a ghost in my own home. My doctor, Dr. Albright, a nice man, kind eyes, but perpetually busy, a packed waiting room every time. He ran standard tests, blood work, basic neurological checks, said it was likely just age, the stress of losing George, grief catching up, perfectly normal, he assured me, prescribed mild sedatives for anxiety and sleep, which only made the fog thicker, the confusion worse, playing right into their hands, didn't it? Clara was always there, fussing, tidying up, rearranging things on my desk, in the kitchen. Sometimes things would go missing, small things at first, a silver locket George gave me, a few stamps from my father's collection, a small porcelain figurine. I'd mention it, confused, feeling foolish. "Oh, Auntie," Clara would sigh, that practiced pity heavy in her voice, her eyes wide with fake concern. "You probably just misplaced it. You know how forgetful you've been lately. Don't worry, it'll turn up." Gaslighting, I know the term now. Back then, it was just bewildering, terrifying. Was I losing my mind? Was this dementia, setting in so fast, so aggressively? It felt like my world was tilting, slipping away from me. They started suggesting changes, gently at first, then with more insistence, maybe selling the house. It was too big for me now, all those stairs, the upkeep, moving into assisted living. "Just so we know you're safe, Aunt Agnes," Clara urged, her hand patting mine. Her touch felt cold, clammy, despite her warm words. Ben presented figures, charts and graphs he'd made, showing how my savings were dwindling, faster than they should. "Market downturns," he muttered vaguely, avoiding my gaze. "Unexpected expenses, property taxes went up again." He looked shifty, uncomfortable, but I was too unwell, too confused, too reliant on him to press him effectively. The numbers swam before my eyes, meaningless symbols on a page. My garden, my sanctuary, even that felt wrong. Some of my rarer plants, the ones needing specific, careful attention, they looked neglected, drooping, yellowing leaves. Was I forgetting to water them properly too? Clara said she was helping, watering them when she visited. "Maybe the soil's bad," she suggested vaguely. "Maybe they're just old plants, Auntie." Old, some were specimens I'd nurtured for decades. It was a slow, creeping nightmare, my world shrinking, my mind feeling like a sieve, leaky, unreliable. my body betraying me with weakness and strange pains, and the two people I trusted most, hovering, concerned, like vultures disguised as doves. Yet, sometimes, when they thought I wasn't looking, I'd catch a look, a fleeting glance exchanged between them, something cold, calculating, impatient, dismissed it as paranoia, a symptom of my cognitive decline. The decline they were meticulously, cruelly engineering. I remember one afternoon, vividly, the turning point, feeling particularly weak, drifting in and out of awareness on the sofa in the living room, sunlight streaming through the window, dust motes dancing. Clara was there, tidying the already tidy bookshelves. Ben was on the phone in the hallway, his voice low. They thought I was fully asleep, just a dozing old woman, harmless, oblivious. I heard snippets, fragments of conversation, floating in the quiet house. Dr. Albright believes it's progressing rapidly, Clara whispered, talking to Ben after his call ended, a hint of satisfaction, smugness, in her voice. It sent a chill down my spine that had nothing to do with the draft. Good, good, Ben murmured back. The power of attorney paperwork is ready. He printed it this morning, just needs her signature, shouldn't be hard to guide her hand one more time. Guide my hand, what did that mean, like I was a child, or completely incompetent? And the financials, Ben asked, urgency sharpening his tone. Are we clear? Nearly, Clara replied smoothly, sounding unnervingly efficient. Another few transfers should do it. The coin collection is already gone. Sold it last week to that dealer downtown. Told her it went for professional cleaning and appraisal. My husband's coin collection, George's passion, built over 30 years, each coin with a story, gone, sold, without my knowledge, without my permission, for cash. Just need to keep her comfortable and confused, for a little while longer, Clara added, moving closer to where I lay. Her shadow fell over me. A little more of that special tea tonight should help ensure she's agreeable, a soft chuckle, low, conspiratorial, utterly devoid of warmth. My blood ran cold, colder than the creeping illness, colder than the fear that had become my constant companion, colder than George's side of the bed. Special tea, guide her hand, coin collection gone, sold, financials nearly cleared, power of attorney. It wasn't age, it wasn't grief, it wasn't dementia, it wasn't my mind failing. It was them. They were doing this to me, deliberately, systematically, poisoning me, stealing from me, planning to take everything, including my mind, my autonomy, my home, my life. I lay there perfectly still, eyes closed, breathing evenly, feigning the deep sleep they believed I was in. My mind, suddenly, terrifyingly clear. The fog didn't lift, it shattered like glass struck by a hammer, replaced by an icy, burning clarity. Rage, pure, focused rage. It didn't make me tremble, it made me still. It honed every sense, sharpened every thought. They thought I was a frail, confused old woman, ripe for the picking. They thought they had won. They underestimated the librarian. They underestimated the quiet woman who studied poisons for fun, who catalogued the world with meticulous precision. They had no idea who they were dealing with, not anymore. That night, when Clara brought the steaming mug, her face arranged in that familiar mask of concern. Here, Auntie, nice cup of chamomile, help you sleep. I took it, smiled weakly, thanked her, pretended to sip, palmed the cup when she turned away to fluff my pillows, poured it down the bathroom sink later, rinsing away the evidence. My hands didn't shake, not from weakness, but from controlled fury, a deep, seismic anger taking root. The turning point wasn't just realization, it was overhearing their callousness, their utter lack of humanity, their smug certainty that I was already gone. That certainty, that arrogance, would be their downfall. I needed proof, cold, hard, undeniable proof, not just my suspicions, not just my suddenly clear mind, which they could still argue was unreliable, proof that would stand up in court, proof that would destroy them, utterly, professionally, personally. So the investigation began, my own quiet, meticulous investigation, right under their noses, while playing the part of the fadding aunt. First, the poison, my knowledge, dormant for years, buried under layers of grief and theoretical interest, now surged forward, demanding attention. What were the symptoms again? Fatigue, confusion, nausea, dizziness, tremors, digestive issues, hair thinning slightly. Yes, all present, consistent with several possibilities: chronic low-dose exposure, designed to mimic natural decline, likely botanical, something easily obtained, easily administered. Something from my own garden. The irony was sickening, a bitter taste in my mouth stronger than any poison. I started observing, meticulously, silently, what plants did Clara favor when making her special teas. She often used lemon balm, mint, chamomile, common, harmless soothers. But did she add anything else, anything harvested secretly, perhaps from the back of the garden? Did she ever wander near the old shed? I remembered George's joke about knowing poisons. It wasn't just theoretical reading. Years ago, driven by pure intellectual curiosity and a librarian's need to categorize everything, I'd cultivated a small, very private section of my garden, behind the old, dilapidated shed, hidden from casual view, plants known for their potent properties: monkshood, foxglove, deadly nightshade, even oleander kept under lock and key, literally. In a small, fenced-off area, treated with extreme respect and caution, documented carefully in coded notebooks, purely for study, comparison, understanding their structures, their chemistry, their history, never for use, until now, perhaps, indirectly, devastatingly. Had they found it? Had they accessed it? Clara certainly knew I kept spare house keys hidden in the garden, under a specific stone gnome George detested. Had she found the key to the enclosure too, or simply taken cuttings from the oleander bushes near the front fence? Easily accessible, pretty pink flowers masking deadly potential. I started documenting my symptoms, precisely: time, date, severity, food and drink consumed, especially noting the days I didn't drink Clara's teas versus the days I pretended to. I secretly collected samples of the teas she made, just a few drops, carefully siphoned off, storing them in small, sterile glass vials I ordered online under a false name, delivered to a post office box I rented, labelled with codes, dated. Hidden in old, hollowed-out encyclopedias in the attic, places they'd never look, thinking me too frail and forgetful to climb the steep attic stairs. Oh, the energy that fury gave me. I forced myself to eat only prepackaged foods when possible, things I could open myself: yogurts, crackers, canned soup, drank only bottled water I opened myself, the special teas, always carefully discarded down the drain when they weren't looking, or used to water a particularly resilient fern. It was difficult, required constant vigilance, feigning continued decline while my mind raced, plotting, gathering evidence, acting weaker than I felt. It was exhausting. A different kind of exhaustion than the poison induced. This was the weariness of constant performance, constant fear of discovery. Then the finances. Ben thought he was so clever, so modern, showing me those simplified printouts, patronizing me with large fonts and basic summaries. I needed the real picture, the ugly truth, accessing my own bank accounts online. He'd changed the passwords, of course, locked me out of my own financial life, but Ben, bless his greedy, careless heart, wasn't truly sophisticated, just arrogant. Security questions: mother's maiden name, Emily, first pet. A tabby cat named Ginger, favourite teacher, Mrs. Gable, my stern but fair high school English teacher. He'd likely used information easily gleaned from my old photo albums he sometimes flipped through, or casual conversations where I reminisced. It took 3 tries on the main bank portal. My heart pounded with each attempt. Then, I was in. The devastation hit me like a physical blow, worse than the nausea, worse than the dizziness, account balances plummeting, unauthorized transfers, large sums, tens of thousands, moved systematically to accounts I didn't recognize, account numbers noted meticulously in my hidden logbook, credit cards opened in my name, maxed out on electronics, Fancy dinners, things I would never buy, investments liquidated, stocks sold at a loss, my carefully built nest egg. George's legacy, meant for my security, my comfort, systematically gutted, pillaged. I saved everything, downloaded statements, transaction histories, dates, times, amounts, IP addresses where available, showing logins from unfamiliar locations, building a digital dossier of their theft, stored on multiple encrypted USB drives, hidden separately. But I needed more than financial records and suspected poisoning. I needed their communications, their planning, their intent, laid bare. This required help, professional help, discreet help, help I couldn't source through normal channels. Finding the right person was tricky. I couldn't exactly walk into a police station or a mainstream detective agency. Not yet. They might dismiss me as a confused old woman, just as my doctor had, just as Clara and Ben wanted everyone to. I needed irrefutable proof before revealing my hand. I remembered a young man who used to frequent the library years ago. Jamie, quiet tech whiz, always helping people with computer problems. Fixing crashed hard drives, retrieving lost files. He'd started his own small cybersecurity firm, specializing in digital forensics and data recovery. Small, independent, hungry for work. Perfect. I contacted him, using a burner phone I bought with cash from a corner store miles away, met him in a busy, anonymous coffee shop halfway across town, paid him a retainer in cash, up front, gave him limited information initially, suspected fraud targeting an elderly person, needed access recovery and data retrieval from specific devices, primarily mine, and potentially, devices used frequently within my home network, hinting at unauthorized use by guests. I gave him the make and model of the old desktop computer Ben, sometimes used in my study, to help with bills. He was good, very good, young, sharp, and thankfully, discreet. He understood the need for confidentiality immediately. He guided me remotely on how to subtly enable enhanced logging on my home Wi-Fi router, capturing connection data. He also helped me install monitoring software, a keylogger, on the old desktop computer Ben used. Disguised as a routine system update I asked Ben to run because it seemed slow. I felt a pang of guilt. Invasive, dirty, using these surveillance methods. But then I remembered the cold dread after overhearing their conversation. The special tea, the stolen coins, the plan to guide my hand. My hesitation vanished, replaced by cold resolve. This wasn't spying, it was self-preservation, counter-espionage. While the digital traps were being set, I focused on the physical evidence, the plant samples. I needed them analyzed definitively, but couldn't risk a standard lab. Too many questions, too much potential exposure. Clara or Ben might have contacts, might hear about it. My botanical knowledge, it had to be enough, for now, to confirm my suspicions, using reference books I hadn't opened in years, high-powered magnifying glasses, comparing leaf fragments, flower remnants, faint residues scraped from the bottom of the tea strainers Clara sometimes left carelessly in the sink. Yes, the veining, the texture, traces, consistent with oleander, Nerium oleander, subtly mixed with the masking flavors of chamomile or mint. Not enough to cause immediate acute poisoning, but enough to accumulate, to mimic steady decline, heart irregularities, neurological symptoms, gastrointestinal distress, classic chronic olandrin poisoning, easily sourced from cuttings, perhaps even from my own neglected bushes near the fence, or worse, from my private collection if they'd breached it. They were careless, arrogant, thinking I was too far gone, too medically befuddled, too grief-stricken to notice the details. The details are where librarians live. The digital evidence started trickling in, thanks to Jamie, my tech expert. He decrypted router logs, recovered deleted emails from my own account's trash folder, emails between Clara and Ben using coded language at first, then becoming more brazen, discussing my failing health, strategizing about convincing Dr. Albright, moving funds between accounts, selling assets, complaining about how long it was taking for me to become incapacitated. Their impatience. Their sheer, naked greed, explicitly mentioning the power of attorney as the golden ticket, mentioning specific account numbers, transfer dates, amounts, it all matched my bank records perfectly, a lock and key of damning evidence. There were also fragments of texts recovered from cloud backups Jamie accessed, web search histories from Ben's sessions on my desktop, searches for symptoms of early onset dementia, quick asset liquidation without suspicion, undetectable plant toxins, oleander poisoning symptoms long-term, how much oleander is fatal, bingo, cold, hard proof of intent. It was all there, a horrifying, detailed tapestry of betrayal, greed, and cold-blooded calculation, woven together with digital threads and botanical poisons, methodical, cruel, almost unbelievable. Now I had the proof, mountains of it, physical samples collected, digital records saved and backed up, communication logs retrieved, financial trails documented. The question was what to do with it. Go straight to the police? Yes, eventually. That was the logical step, the legal necessity, but that felt incomplete, too clean, too quick for the slow, agonizing torture they had inflicted on me. They hadn't just stolen money, they had stolen months of my life, my health, my peace of mind, my trust, my connection to my sister's memory. They tried to erase me, piece by painful piece, while smiling to my face. Serving me tea. No, justice needed to be more personal, more thorough, more satisfying, a reflection of their own calculated cruelty. They needed to understand the depth of their mistake. They needed to feel the trap close, slowly, deliberately, just as they had tried to slowly, deliberately extinguish my mind, my life. My anger, it wasn't hot anymore. It wasn't the shattering rage of that first realization. It had settled, cooled, transformed into something else, glacial, a vast cold ocean of fury, controlled, precise, waiting to be unleashed, not in a chaotic storm, but as an unstoppable, crushing tide. It was time to set the final stage, time for the quiet, underestimated librarian to check out their overdue cruelty, permanently. If you're finding this story as unbelievable and infuriating, as I do, if you're feeling that same chill down your spine, hit that subscribe button, because the way Agnes turns the tables, the sheer meticulous planning, it's something you need to witness, even secondhand. Stick with us, the reckoning is coming. Now back to Agnes and the execution of her chillingly precise plan. The plan formed, piece by meticulous piece, like assembling a complex puzzle, fueled by cold anger and decades of ingrained librarian habits, organization, research, cross-referencing, execution. It needed several elements, woven together perfectly. Financial entrapment, exposure of the medical manipulation, public humiliation, and finally, inescapable legal reckoning. I knew their weaknesses, intimately now, greed, blinding, desperate greed, impatience. They were getting anxious, sloppy, overconfidence. They still believed they held all the cards, that I was just a confused old lady. Clara's carefully cultivated desire for social standing in our community, Ben's palpable desperation for quick cash, judging by his spending patterns revealed in the stolen account statements. They thought the finish line was near. They just needed me declared incompetent, or worse, gone. So I decided to dangle some bait, something irresistible, something that would push their greed into overdrive, making them even more reckless. Using my recovered access to my email account, and employing some basic formatting tricks Jamie taught me to make it look authentic, I fabricated an email, supposedly from my late husband George's old, now retired investment broker in Switzerland, sent it to myself, but left it clearly visible and marked unread in my inbox, knowing Ben checked my emails for me almost daily now, looking for, what, bills he could hide, further proof of my decline. The email spoke of a newly discovered, obscure overseas account, a sleeper investment George had made years ago, during a stint working overseas, something even I supposedly didn't know about, now matured and worth a substantial amount, a truly life-changing amount, enough to dwarf what they had already stolen. The email stressed the need for absolute discretion due to international banking regulations, and required direct action by the account holder, Agnes Sterling, or someone with full legal power of attorney, within a very short timeframe, to claim the funds before they were potentially lost to dormant account laws. It was pure fiction, crafted from whole cloth, but plausible enough. Given George's quiet financial acumen and his time working abroad, it played on their belief that there might be hidden assets they hadn't yet uncovered. Then I waited and watched, feigning increased confusion, Maury weakness, sometimes asking Clara repetitive questions, sometimes misplacing the remote control she just handed me, playing the part they expected, needed, while secretly monitoring the network traffic, the keylogger on the study computer. It didn't take long. Within 2 days, panicked, excited digital chatter erupted between Clara and Ben, accessible thanks to Jamie feeding me the decrypted keylogs and router data almost in real time now. They'd found the email. The greed was practically leaping off the screen. Tangible, vile, mixed with intense frustration. How to access it, how to get that money before the deadline. They needed that power of attorney, now more than ever. Their caution lessened significantly. Their digital footprint grew bolder, sloppier, more searches logged on the study computer, expedited power of attorney for dementia patient, legal challenges to competency hearings, moving funds internationally undetected quickly, Swiss bank account access requirements. They were walking deeper and deeper into the web I was spinning, blinded by dollar signs. Next, the medical front, undermining their narrative of my decline. I scheduled an appointment with Dr. Albright, but I also made another consultation, secretly, with a highly respected forensic toxicologist, recommended by Jamie, Dr. Lena Hansen, someone known for her expertise in complex poisoning cases and absolute discretion, based miles away in a different city. To Dr. Albright, I presented my documented symptoms, carefully, following the pattern they expected, but I also mentioned, casually, innocently, how much better I seemed to feel on the days Clara didn't visit, how I sometimes skipped her special teas because they upset my stomach, how some days the fog seemed to lift miraculously, only to return after one of her visits where she insisted I drink the tea for relaxation, planting a seed of doubt. A tiny question mark, without making direct accusations, letting him connect potential dots himself later. I also mentioned feeling a bit clearer lately. Maybe the sedatives were finally adjusting. Then, the appointment with Dr. Hansen, I travelled to her clinic discreetly, taking a series of buses to avoid traceable cab fares or using my own car. I provided everything, my detailed symptom log, the carefully preserved and coded tea samples, my own preliminary analysis based on my botanical knowledge, pointing towards oleander. I gave her hair samples, nail clippings, undergoing further tests she recommended. The results came back within a week, relayed through secure channels Jamie helped establish, conclusive, definitive, chronic exposure to olandrin, the toxic glycoside in oleander, levels consistent with my documented symptoms, consistent with the chemical signature found in the tea samples, consistent with deliberate, malicious, long-term poisoning. Dr. Hansen prepared a detailed multi-page report, charts, graphs, citations, notarized, ironclad. Undeniable scientific proof. Phase 3, setting the stage for exposure. For maximum impact, Clara loved playing the role of the devoted, concerned niece in our community, active in church groups, local charities, volunteer committees. She basked in the sympathy she received, the admiration for caring for her poor, declining Aunt Agnes. It fed her ego, solidified her image, an image I was about to shatter into a million pieces. I decided to use that, weaponize her own vanity. I contacted a trusted old friend, Martha Bellamy, someone I knew from my library board days, sharp as a tack, fiercely loyal, with a healthy dose of righteous indignation herself, and importantly, utterly discreet. I hadn't burdened her with my troubles before, wanting concrete proof first. Now I had it. I invited her over, made her Earl Grey tea, and I told her everything, spread the evidence out on my dining room table. The financial drain documented. The toxicologist's damning report, the printouts of their emails and searches. Martha was horrified, pale with shock initially. Then, her face hardened, furious. Her hand trembled slightly as she picked up the toxicology report. "That vile woman," she whispered. "And Ben, I always thought he was shifty." She was ready to help, immediately, without question. Our plan was simple, yet devastatingly effective, designed for maximum impact and minimum chance of escape for them. I would host a small thank you tea, for Clara and Ben, for all their help and support during my difficult time. Also invited were Dr. Albright, my lawyer Mr. Henderson, and Martha, my dear supportive friend. Just a quiet, intimate gathering at my home, the scene of their crimes. Clara and Ben arrived first, together, radiating false concern, mixed with barely concealed anticipation. Their eyes darted around the room, perhaps looking for signs of further decline, or maybe assessing the remaining valuables. They probably thought this was it, the moment I'd finally sign everything over, or perhaps collapse entirely, rendering the paperwork moot. Clara presented me with a small bouquet, ironically containing baby's breath, sometimes associated with innocence. Ben hovered awkwardly, clutching a briefcase, likely containing the power of attorney documents. The atmosphere was tense, crackling with unspoken currents. I played my part, the frail, slightly confused but grateful aunt. I thanked Clara effusively for her teas, even had a pot of simple, harmless chamomile brewed, which I pointedly did not drink myself, offering it graciously to them first. "You must be tired after all you do for me," I murmured. They accepted, of course, sipping cautiously at first, then relaxing slightly as the familiar, harmless taste registered. Then, at the moment Martha and I had rehearsed, after some strained small talk about the weather and neighbourhood happenings, I turned towards my lawyer, Mr. Henderson, my voice suddenly clear, steady, devoid of the tremor I'd been feigning, cutting through the polite facade. "Mr. Henderson," I said, locking eyes with Clara and Ben, enjoying the flicker of surprise, then alarm in their expressions, before we discuss the will or any power of attorney documents. "There are some significant discrepancies, financial and, more alarmingly, medical, that need immediate attention." Clara and Ben froze, mid-sip, mid-sentence, their practiced smiles faltered, evaporated. "Discrepancies, Agnes?" Clara asked, forcing a lightness into her voice that sounded brittle, ready to shatter. "What do you mean? Are you feeling confused again, dear?" She glanced towards Dr. Albright, seeking backup. "I mean," I said, my voice gaining strength, locking eyes with her, letting her see the ice behind my gaze. "The systematic theft of nearly my entire life savings, hundreds of thousands of dollars, orchestrated by you and Benjamin." I nodded towards Ben, who had gone deathly pale, looking like he might faint or vomit. I calmly placed a thick folder on the polished mahogany dining table. Bank statements, highlighted transfer records, credit card bills run up in my name, the fabricated email about the fictional overseas account, and logs of their subsequent frantic searches, clear evidence of their greed-fueled intentions. "And I also mean," I continued, my voice dropping to a deadly quiet, like ice forming on water, "the chronic poisoning, using oleander sourced likely from my own garden, designed to incapacitate me, to mimic dementia, to make the theft easier, to perhaps hasten my demise." I placed Dr. Hanson's toxicology report next to the financial documents, open to the summary page, the words Olandrin toxicity, chronic exposure, consistent with intentional poisoning, clearly visible. Dr. Albright gasped audibly. His eyes shot from the report, to me, remembering my comments about the teas, then back to the damning report, the seeds of doubt I'd planted, now blooming explosively in the face of hard scientific evidence. His face flushed with anger, and perhaps professional embarrassment. My lawyer's face hardened into a mask of grim determination. He already knew the details, but seeing the final proof laid out. Martha looked grimly satisfied, a small, fierce nod in my direction. Clara went white, then blotchy red, panic flashing in her eyes before being replaced by fury. "This is absurd," she sputtered, her voice rising, becoming shrill. "Aunt Agnes, you're clearly confused, delusional. This is exactly why you need help, doctor. Tell her she's not well." But Dr. Albright wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the medical evidence, at the betrayal documented in cold, hard print. "And the emails," I added softly, but loud enough for everyone to hear, placing another printout on the table. "Their own words, plotting, confirming their actions, and the text messages retrieved from your phone backups, and Ben's web searches for undetectable plant toxins and oleander dosage made from my computer." Ben made a choked, gagging sound, stood up abruptly, knocking over his teacup. Harmless chamomile, ironically, spilled across the damning evidence, staining the papers. I need some air," he stammered, stumbling towards the door, desperate to escape the closing trap. "I don't think so, Benjamin," said Mr. Henderson, my lawyer, his voice firm, commanding. He stood up as well, blocking Ben's path slightly. He had already, discreetly, moments before I started speaking, placed a call, alerted by me beforehand with a prearranged signal. We could hear sirens approaching in the distance, growing louder, closer. Clara stared at me, naked hatred blazing in her eyes, the mask of concern completely gone, shattered, revealing the monster beneath. "You old witch," she hissed, venom dripping from every syllable. "You knew, you were pretending, all this time." "Not pretending, Clara," I corrected her calmly, meeting her hateful gaze without flinching, my voice steady, measured, observing, documenting, preparing. "You thought I was fadding, weak, disposable. You were wrong. You just weren't paying close enough attention to who you were dealing with. The librarian always notices the details." The police arrived, 2 uniformed officers, calmly, professionally, stepping into the charged atmosphere. Mr. Henderson met them at the door, presented the evidence succinctly, the financial records, the signed toxicology report, the digital communications. He explained the situation clearly, calmly. The officers listened intently, read the key documents, their faces grim, exchanging looks. Clara started shouting then, hysterical accusations against me, denials, trying to blame Ben entirely, then shifting back to calling me senile, delusional, vindictive. It was a pathetic, desperate performance, and utterly transparent in the face of the overwhelming evidence scattered on the table. Ben was silent, slumped in a chair near the door, utterly defeated, tears streaming down his face. He didn't even look up when the officers approached him. They were arrested, read their rights, led away in handcuffs, in front of my doctor, my lawyer, my friend Martha, the devoted, concerned niece, the helpful, quiet nephew, exposed, utterly, devastatingly, their carefully constructed world collapsing around them under the weight of their own actions. The fallout was swift and brutal, just as I intended, just as they deserved. The legal process moved forward with surprising speed, with the mountain of meticulously gathered evidence, financial, digital, medical, toxicological. Their defense crumbled like dry leaves. They tried blaming each other initially. Then their lawyers attempted to argue I was incompetent, orchestrating this out of spite or paranoia, but the proof was irrefutable, cold, hard, factual. Ben, faced with the overwhelming evidence and perhaps a sliver of conscience or just sheer terror, confessed quickly, gave a full statement, hopping for leniency, implicated Clara fully as the mastermind, detailed the poisoning, the gradual escalation, how she initiated it after realizing how much money I actually had, how she sourced the oleander from cuttings she secretly took from the front garden bushes, thinking my botanical labels were just fussy old lady organizing. Not actual warnings. He admitted to handling the financial draining, following her instructions, moving the money, selling the coins and other items. Clara fought it longer, maintaining her innocence with a venomous conviction that bordered on pathological. Her trial was longer, more dramatic. She tried to manipulate the jury, crying 1 minute, raging the next, but they saw through it. The emails, the texts, Ben's detailed confession, Dr. Hanson's unshakable testimony about the poisoning. It was too much, too damning. They were both found guilty, on multiple counts: conspiracy to commit fraud, grand theft, elder abuse, assault with a deadly weapon, forgery. The judge was visibly angered by the calculated cruelty and betrayal of trust, unimpressed with their belated self-serving attempts at remorse during sentencing. Sentenced them both to significant prison terms, long ones, no possibility of parole for a very long time. They would be old themselves before they saw freedom again, if ever. The financial recovery was complex, but Mr. Henderson was relentless, a bulldog in a suit, clawing back what could be recovered, freezing accounts they'd opened, forcing the liquidation and sale of assets they'd bought with my stolen money, a new car for Ben, designer clothes for Clara. It wasn't everything. Some cash was gone forever, spent recklessly by Ben on online gambling, the statements revealed, but a substantial portion was returned. Enough to restore my financial security, enough to live comfortably, enough to feel whole again, financially at least. The social fallout, perhaps in its own way just as satisfying as the legal justice. Martha, true to her word, discreetly, but thoroughly, let the right people in our community know the real story, not malicious gossip, just the cold, hard facts, supported by the public court records and news reports of the trial. Clara's carefully crafted image as the selfless caregiver shattered instantly, irrevocably, replaced by the ugly reality, a poisoner, a thief. Preying on her own vulnerable aunt, the invitations to committees and social events stopped overnight. The sympathetic smiles turned to looks of disgust or outright avoidance. Her cherished social standing, annihilated, complete and utter social ruin. Ben, being less socially prominent, simply faded into the background of general disgrace. My health slowly, steadily, returned once the constant low dose of poison was gone from my system. The fog lifted completely, like a curtain rising, the fatigue lessened week by week. My strength came back, guided by Dr. Albright, now deeply apologetic and far more attentive, referring me for physical therapy to regain muscle tone. The tremors stopped entirely. My mind felt sharp again, clear, my own again. It was like waking up from a long, terrifying dream. My house felt different afterwards, cleansed, lighter. I got rid of the furniture they favoured, the sofa I'd been lying on when I overheard them, changed all the locks, installed a state-of-the-art security system with cameras, hired professional cleaners for a deep, symbolic purification of every corner, letting sunlight and fresh air banish the lingering shadows of their presence. My garden, my sanctuary, I pruned it back, ruthlessly at first, removing any trace of the oleander near the front fence, cutting back the plants Clara had pretended to care for. Then I began replanting, expanding the section with medicinal herbs, echinacea for immunity, lavender for calm, St. John's wort for resilience, healing plants, life-affirming plants, and yes, behind the shed, the locked section remained, untouched, a reminder of knowledge. Of power, of the darkness that can hide in plain sight, even in beautiful flowers, but also a reminder of the strength found in understanding that darkness, respecting it, and controlling it. I didn't feel triumphant, not exactly. That emotion felt too loud, too celebratory for the grimness of it all. Maury, vindicated, quietly, fiercely satisfied, justice had been served, not just legally, but personally, cosmically perhaps. They tried to erase me, slowly, painfully, and instead they erased themselves, from my life, from society, from any semblance of a worthwhile future. Their own actions were the poison that destroyed them in the end. Their greed, their cruelty, their fatal underestimation of a quiet librarian who paid attention to details, was their complete undoing. My life is quiet again, Orderly, predictable, much like it was before, but it's a different quiet now. It's not the silence of loneliness or grief anymore, but the profound calm of safety, of autonomy regained, of knowing I faced the absolute worst betrayal imaginable, and I prevailed, I survived, I fought back. Using the tools I had, my mind, my knowledge, my resolve, and I won, on my own terms. Sometimes I sit in my garden, surrounded by my books and my carefully tended plants, the scent of lavender in the air, and I feel peace, a hard-won peace, a peace I reclaimed, inch by painstaking inch, with cold fury, meticulous planning, and precise knowledge they learned, the hard way, the very hard way. Never, ever, underestimate the librarian. Wow, just wow, Agnes's story, it's chilling, isn't it? The calculated cruelty is breathtaking, the slow, insidious nature of it all, poisoning someone with plants from their own beloved garden, but that quiet strength, that hidden knowledge turning into an unlikely, devastating weapon, it's truly incredible. It gives me goosebumps every time. She didn't just stumble into justice, she orchestrated it, meticulously, like planning a complex research project, turning their own actions, their own greed, their own assumptions, back on them with devastating precision. Was it harsh? Absolutely. The public exposure, the calculated timing, the coldness of it, was it necessary? Given what they did, what they tried to steal, not just money but her mind, her life, I think Agnes would say yes, unequivocally. Sometimes the response has to match the crime. It's a stark, terrifying reminder. Betrayal can come from the closest corners, from the people who smile the brightest, who offer you tea, but resilience and righteous anger can be incredibly powerful forces, especially when hidden beneath a quiet exterior, especially when underestimated. What do you think? Was Agnes's response justified? Did she go too far? Or was it exactly what Clara and Ben deserved for their horrific actions? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely read them all, and this story, it sparks debate. And if stories like this, stories of resilience, of intricate justice, of the unexpected ways people fight back against overwhelming odds, resonate with you, make sure you're subscribed. Hit that notification bell too, because you won't want to miss what's coming next. I promise you that. Share this story if you feel it needs to be heard, as a warning, as inspiration, maybe both. Thank you for listening, really listening. These stories matter. Agnes wanted hers told. I'm Victoria, and I'll be back soon with another unforgettable story. Take care, stay aware, and maybe, just maybe, take a closer look at those quiet ones in your life. You never truly know the strength they hold, or the knowledge they possess, until they're tested.